I'm a big fan of Stranger Things, and the more I hear you talk, the more I see the need
You can see it.
for this amazing um, type of content that you've created. Which I want to make a stop here and ask you, and I think maybe you already hint at it, but why should people read this book, whether they're into Stranger Things or into theology?
Hmm.
What's the value?
Yeah. Well, I think just for fans of the show, let's leave, Christian stuff aside. For fans of
Mhm.
the show, I think the book will help them to appreciate the 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 artistry of the show, the cleverness of the show, the intellectual content of the show in a whole new way. Uh, the fact that it can map over to something as big and epic as the thing we call the Bible, that ought to at least interest you. Like, how does that happen? Because the Duffer Brothers, the creators of the show, they're not doing anything intentionally Christian. It gives you an opportunity again to talk to people who have no interest in spiritual things, but they love the show, Stranger Things. Well, let's talk a little bit about why this happens in literature and film. Let's talk about archetypes. I mean, we do this with Narnia, the Narnia Chronicles. We do it with
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings. Lots of people who aren't interested in Christianity love the Lord of the Rings. And we as Christians know that this has a heritage. Tolkien.
Hmm.
There's a theological investment here. Stranger Things does the same kind of work. It's not. I mean, Lord of the Rings. It's hard to get more sophisticated than that, obviously. But but this is really well done. And the neat thing about it is, I don't think any of it was intentional. I think it's all providential. There's only one scene in Stranger Things that, and people online, have hooked into this and wondered about it. I think there's only one scene in Stranger Things that might be sort of a nod to something intentionally Christian. That's the end of season 1 when Hopper puts the Eggos into that box. The box is a standard, sort of low budget Catholic communion box. The wafers are round. You
Hmm.
know, there are things like that, but that's about it. Typically, though, it's on the conceptual theological level
Yeah.
that this show tracks on. Now, for believers, again, this ought to be a little more obvious, that there's so much going on in the show that reminds us of who we are. I think one of the things that draws people in, has drawn people into the show, is that every character in the show is broken. Some of them are broken a little, some of them are broken a lot. They all reinforce the the reality that you really can't fix yourself. You really can't save yourself. A Hopper is like the poster child for the person who has suffered greatly in life. He's lost a daughter when she was 5 to cancer. He lost his marriage because of it. So what does he do? He womanizes, he medicates, he drinks a lot, but there's also something in him that he's this thing of stone when it comes to putting himself at personal risk to do the right thing. He just does it.
Hmm.
It's easy to take a character like that and just like, yep, I know people like that, or that's me. They all have attachment issues. Like with the exception of Lucas, every one of them is from a broken home. Lucas, the one who's not from a broken home, is black. He's the only black kid in the town. They've all got the stuff going on where they hunger for identity and they hunger for
Mm.
purpose. And the show, what's happening to them, gives them both. And again, that this is what the gospel does. This is what salvation history does. If we go from Genesis to Revelation, what God really wants is a human family. He created us to be fit for sacred space, to be with Him. We are His imagers. This is our identity. And because of that identity, God wants partners. And originally, He wanted humans to blend with His supernatural family, to make the rest of the world like this Eden place that He had come to dwell among men. Humans can't go to Him, so He comes to them. Now we know it gets destroyed, but God doesn't ditch the plan. He doesn't regret the plan. He doesn't, renege on it. He pursues it to the end. Okay, this is what God wants. God wants to take everything full circle. And so when we are redeemed, when we're brought back into the family, we become not only joint heirs with family membership, but we become partners
Mm.
to redeem others through the gospel. We have identity and we have mission. And this is what the supernatural encounter of the show and the search for Will does for the characters. One of the things I talk about in the book that I found really interesting and kind of profound, to be honest with you, is how the characters change from season 1 to season 2. In season 1, they've all been introduced to this other reality, the upside down. They're all awakened to this. They've encountered it personally. And that changes them. And they can't go back. They can't unsee what they've seen. They can't deny what they've encountered and experienced. And so they treat each other. I mean, it's them and everybody else in the town. They know the secret. They know what's really going on. They know what's really real. A reality more real than this one.
Mm.
And that affects them. They treat each other in light of that. And so it's a great metaphor for how the church should be. All the barriers that you would think would prevent them from being a group, a unity, a cohesive group, and friends. Yes, they have tensions. Yes, they have conflict. But at the end of the day, they will do whatever they need to do to save everybody else in the group,
Mm-hmm.
and to combat, this evil that they know of. And that's the way the church should be. We're all in the same family. We all have the same mission. So again, this was so easy to write. The show does it so well on a spiritual level and just on a practical level of how how this affects them, and really how our encounter with Jesus ought to affect us.